My guest tonight is a fearless competitor who dominated hitters and earned a reputation as one of the most clutch pitchers in Major League Baseball history. After being traded from his beloved Detroit Tigers to the Atlanta Braves, John Andrew Smoltz became a World Series champion, a Cy Young Award winner, and sits second all-time in playoff wins by a pitcher. But before he became an 8-time All-Star, did you know he was a talented accordion player as a child, learned how to pitch from reading books, was recruited as a high school basketball player? Well, tonight we'll learn what makes this undeniable icon who he is. A man who once said, "I am not afraid to fail." Please welcome Hall of Famer John Smoltz. Have a seat.
All right.
You know, the last time John and I were sitting together with microphones in front of our mouths, the Chicago Cubs were winning their first World Series in 108 years. He's my broadcast partner at Fox Sports on baseball, and man, it was a fun year. It was an unbelievable postseason, and I got to know you a little bit. And now, John, that I've read more about your history, I'm reevaluating everything.
Yeah, as you should.
Yeah, no, it is a great study in perseverance and somebody who wanted to teach himself, in a way, how to be great. And you did that. But it starts in Michigan. You're the oldest of three.
Yep.
And I get the sense that back then, even the household with your siblings was competitive.
Yeah, we're 1 year apart, so you can imagine the tightness of my mom having us right in a row. And we grew up in a different kind of household that had to get used to a different type of music that we grew up on. That was polkas, that was the accordion. My dad was one of those guys that was not afraid of who he was and what he did. He promoted his business. He worked 2 and 3 jobs. We didn't see him a lot, but when we did, he had a lot of fun.
There you are, by the way, rocking an accordion, which they always called you a strong guy as a big leaguer. I mean, you're 4. That thing, are you playing it or is it playing you? That thing is huge.
I have small memories of that. I mean, they have the clippings and to see the accordion today. I just came from my parents' house in Arizona, and they've got the actual accordion right there. Looks a lot smaller because that looked a lot bigger when I was that age.
No kidding. But this is something that was near and dear to your parents' hearts, and so it was, I guess, kind of normal for the accordion to be passed down from father to son.
It was 3, 4 generations full of accordions, and I tell you what they did, which was awesome. They didn't teach me. When you think about what parents know and they want to pass it on to their kids, sometimes the most difficult moments is when they're trying to teach their child a sport, or in case, something like the accordion, and they allowed somebody else to teach me. And it became something that I knew at that age. I mean, at 4, what do you know other than it took a lot of practice, a lot of discipline, and I knew my dad loved playing it, and I loved watching him play it, so I was going to be the next Lawrence Welk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're tired in some regard of talking about the accordion, but I think the idea that the hard work and the practice was instilled in you with this instrument, could have been any instrument, could have been anything, really kind of laid the groundwork for what was to come in the world of baseball.
No doubt. I remember being in a car, and we were at the gas station, and I said, "Mom, I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player." And she went, "Wow." She said, "Well, let's have a backup plan." And I said, "Well, if I don't make it as a Major League Baseball player, I'm going to be a gas station attendant. This is the coolest thing in the world." I mean, back then,
you get to fill up the car.
Yeah, you're doing the windows, check the hood, check the oil. And she was cool about that, too. She said, "That's great. Let's just keep that one under our hat."
Right,
and,
yeah.
Kind of pursue it.
You could have been the world's first accordion-playing gas station attendant.
Exactly.
Can I check your fluids?
Exactly. But they were really cool about it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they gave me every opportunity to pursue my desires and dreams, fully not thinking I would make it or it would die out. I felt like they might think it might die out, like he's not as good as he may think he is, and we'll see what happens.
How much baseball had you played at that point?
None.
Zero.
None.
So at 7, you sit your mom and dad down and you go, 2 things. 1, accordion, goodbye.
Yeah.
2, I'm going to be a professional baseball player.
Yeah, you know, I would play catch with the rubber ball. I mean, organized baseball was starting to happen, T-ball. I never really played T-ball, and I just watched it on TV.
You started to say it, and then we went in another direction. Your dad really worked hard and really worked a lot as a salesman, and so he was out of the house a lot. Your mom was the one at home who was kind of making everything work.
I get my competitiveness indirectly, because that gets asked a lot, from my dad. He didn't want me to win at anything.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. He wasn't the guy who's like, let the little kid, I'll let him score buckets on me, or I'll just lob it in there.
No, whether it was card games or board games or ping pong. We grew up in Michigan, so the winters were spent a lot indoors.
In the basement.
In the basement. So I think that's where I learned it. And he was passionate about what he did. So I never saw him feel like he was checking in or checking out, just punching a card. You
mentioned ping pong. I know you're a terrific ping pong player to this day. I mean, it's part of your whole competitive nature, but I was interested to read about ping pong baseball.
Yes.
Which was like a basement game for you, combining the two things where you were just throwing like wicked hooks with a ping pong ball.
So I used to come up with games all the time. My brother and I were obviously a year apart. Buddies of mine would grow up. And like I said, I mean, I loved my Michigan days. I never realized that how much you spend indoors in the winter. And we would play these games all the time. The greatest game for me growing up, I don't know how many in the audience would Baseball Stars on Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
The greatest.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned how, even from a salary structure, how to build your team and what kind of team did you want. And I was literally, I think I cracked the code. I don't know if that's why the game went out, but I think I cracked the code. I had the St. Louis Cardinals of old model. A bunch of guys who could slap it and run
like the
and steal.
AstroTurf teams.
Absolutely. And everyone would try to build their team with sluggers. And I would just dink them to death, and it drove everybody crazy.
So during this time, you have a grandfather, who they called Father John, who worked at Tiger Stadium. So you were at least exposed to big league baseball in this kind of great old cathedral with really good teams, by the way.
Yeah, he was on the grounds crew, I want to say somewhere between 16 and 18 years, then moved to the press room and then moved to different jobs within the Tigers organization. And I would go there. He would get me into the stadium. And I remember as a youngster just kind of sitting in a seat and then get tapped on the shoulder. That was somebody's seat. So I did that until no one sat in a seat. But I got to see what it was like for him on the ground crew. I got to see as the press room when all the dignitaries and all the press would come in, he'd check people in. And he kept telling everybody, including the owner, that I was going to play for the Tigers some days. And I think I'm like 10, 12 years old.
So you moved to Lansing, and I know there's what, a brick wall, or there's...
So I have a small, I guess you call it colonial home, and there's a screen door, our front door, and then about a little bit wider in this chair, brick wall, and then the garage butts up against this brick wall. So it literally could fit a strike zone that I put manually with a tape.
Did you measure it or not?
I probably guessed on what it would be, and then I put these quadrants of boxes on each side. Up, in, down, and away. You know,
in the strike zone or just
outside the strike zone?
Okay.
And I would have the rubber baseballs back then were phenomenal, right? They held their shape. It lasted forever, and it was realistic like a baseball. And I would go.
It had some weight.
It had weight, and I'd go about 45 feet. That's all the curb to the street allowed us in the front yard, and I did this every day. As long as I got my homework done, I went outside, and that was my stadium. That was where I would, because I had a gift that I learned with my arm that I could throw a baseball. My brother couldn't catch it. My dad couldn't catch it. So the wall caught it.
Because you're throwing too hard.
Yeah. And I would hit that, and I would emulate and imagine what environment I wanted to be in. I was the broadcaster. I was the GM, the coach, the pitching coach, the player, and I put myself in every imaginable scenario. And when I would hit that screen door, which I did a little bit earlier than I wanted to, my mom would yell. And I considered that was the crowd, right? Like that. So I got to the point where she told me if I didn't learn how to command that we were going to have to move the baseball game somewhere else.
The strike zone was going away.
So I learned how to do it, and literally I had the time of my life. I mean, I did. I loved my brother and sister. We competed, but when they had other interests, I was right out there throwing against that brick wall.
So simple question, when do you know, how old are you when you're throwing pitches or you're doing things that other kids can't? Meaning your dad doesn't want to catch you, your brother's like, no thanks.
I would say that I knew I was going to, when I went to a tournament in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Triple ABA, it's basically 19 and 18-year-old and under. I was 15 and 16 going to this tournament, competing against some studs.
So you could have been a 15-year-old competing against, theoretically, a 19-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember it's the first time I saw scouts, first time I saw radar guns, first time I was kind of out of my state of Michigan. And I had this one instance where playing Brooklyn, New York. The first 3 innings I did really well. And I was like, man, I can do this. You know, it's first time seeing outside competition. Then a single home run, double home run, walk home run, and like a hit home run. 4 2-run homers in 1 inning. I went home. I told my dad never pushed me. I went home and I said, I need to get better. I'm not as good as I think I am. And it was the turning point for me to push myself to get better.
Tell me about Coach Wagner.
Coach Wagner, Carl Wagner, he's in his early 90s right now, was essential for me. He was served a couple tours in the war. He's a man that dedicated over 50 years of his life to baseball, youth baseball. He was everything that you could ask for a young kid aspiring to be a Major League Baseball player. He provided the tools and the opportunity, and he worked for the fire department. We were named the firefighters. And I remember Carl Wagner saying, don't ever become complacent. Once you do, you're done. I mean, there's people working that much harder than you to pass you by. You never feel like you've arrived. And I've always, you know, as silly as it is, I've always told my kids the difference between bitter and better is one vowel, but the whole meaning changes on how you choose. And I choose to be better than bitter. And it's easy to get stuck in the why me mode. And I learned that from my dad. I learned to just overcome, find a way. And I did that at an early age. When I, you know, broke a toe or had a broken bone on the other hand, I learned how to accomplish what I wanted to do despite what was limited that I couldn't do.
At less than your best.
Yeah.
So you transfer to Waverly, and this is kind of where everything starts to crystallize for you.
Here I was, this young kid that was coming over that everybody knew I was a baseball player. I don't know how many people knew that I actually was a basketball player first. And kind of the reason why I transferred, because at the private school, Catholic school I was going, they kind of labeled me as a baseball player. And I said, I'm in high school. I want to play basketball too. So I got a chance to play basketball at a high competitive level. It's the same league Magic Johnson, Jay Vincent, those guys went through. I obviously grew up idolizing Magic Johnson. And whatever it was, that's after I grew about 7 inches, thankfully.
Right.
But
Your shorts didn't.
No, they didn't. Those were the style back then.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I wore them too.
And again, basketball prepared me for a lot of things that baseball was about to unveil.
You're not the first person, by the way, that sat in that chair and said that. Abby Wambach said the same thing. She was a killer basketball player in high school, and it was angles and different things that she saw on the court that led her to this tremendous soccer career,
Yes.
and now you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, and I love, I mean, basketball is probably the greatest athletes in the world, right? I mean, you're talking about what they have to do on a daily basis and the ability to play both ends. I mean, there's tremendous athletes in a lot of different sports, but I love the you know, this is back without the 3-point, without the shot clock, all the different strategies and how you can compete, Goliath, the underdog, having a chance back then, and that intrigued me.
So listen to this game. They called it the Diamond Classic. You're a senior.
Yeah.
And you tell the story, but I mean, this is like a Disney movie.
It is.
To me.
It's the greatest game that I've ever played in. That's including my big league career. My senior year, I think I was 14-3 or whatever my record was, but we had a losing record as a team. Friday, I pitch a complete game, we win. I threw a no-hitter. They hit 2 balls fair. And the coach that I used to play for was trying to fire up the kids saying, we can hit him. And the kids were laughing, like, no, we can't.
Right.
Monday, I pitched a complete game, we won. Now, you mentioned now the championship Wednesday, so there's not much I'm gonna be able to do. I play shortstop. The place is packed. I mean, there's so many people at this high school game, and the team we're playing is like in the top 5 in the state, and we're trying to pull off this miracle. Well, fast forward to the 4th inning, it's tie game, 3rd inning tie game, bases loaded, nobody out. As the shortstop, I go to the mound, I call him out, and I said, I can get out of this jam. Bases loaded, nobody out. And he said, then what? I said, well, I'll just piece it together. And so I get out of that jam, I strike out the 3 guys, and now I pitch the 4th, now I pitch the 5th, tie game, the 6th, it's a 7-inning game. I'm exhausted. I pitched the 7th, I pitched the top of the 8th.
So you're in extra innings.
We're in extra innings. And something's got to give. And it's the bottom of the 8th, and I come up, and it's the only time in my life I hit a ball that I know is crushed. It's gone. So I hit the ball, and I put my hands, I don't move. I'm at home plate. It's a game winner. My final swing in high school was a game winner. The umpire at some point said, okay, kid, run the bases.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like just standing up and down. They rushed the field. Everybody on the other team, gave me 5 as I walked by. For the circumstances of those 3 games, it's the greatest feeling in the world. I mean, it was unbelievable, that the feeling of knowing that last swing, it was it, game over. And
That's like a mic drop.
It's exactly it. It's exactly
Good night, Waverly. Good night, Lansing.
And when people ask me from not local that don't know Michigan, what's your greatest game, greatest memory? They're always going to think Game 7 against Jack Morris. That one was tough to beat.
The draft is coming up after your senior year. You're good. I mean, but you're playing in a cold weather area.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't get the eyeballs you might have gotten. Scouts have seen, I'm sure, plenty of you. But the word is he's going to Michigan State.
Right.
So the draft comes, and you're maybe a first, second, third round, fourth round kind of guy, but that's not where you go.
I was devastated. I don't know if I ever told my dad how upset I really was. But again, it was another turning point. I'll show you. Like, I can't believe I went to 22nd round.
So they draft you in the 22nd round, but now there's a gap between when they draft you and when they sign you.
Right. If you enter class, you're done.
At Michigan State.
Yeah. And so I enrolled. I did all my thing that I had to do to get ready for college. And the summer that I had was so great. It was so filled with the top tournaments, I pitched extremely well, that the Tigers saw the need to try to work this out. We went right to the wire. Monday morning, first day of class. Sunday night, I think around 9 o'clock, I signed a contract. They got up to first round money, and I signed with the Tigers.
Here's what fascinates me. You're not a drinker.
No.
You're about as straight-laced a guy as I've ever met in professional sports, and you're an 18-year-old kid or whatever you are with, some pretty grizzled veterans with the Tigers. I mean, this was not like the world's prettiest team.
Listen, when you're going to see a movie and you get to see the sneak previews of a movie, they give you a nice taste of what you're about to see. This was my sneak preview. It was unbelievable.
You're like, I got to start drinking, smoking.
I was like, these are the guys I idolize. And I'm gonna say this, like in sports and in life and in even whatever venture you go down to, you have impressionable moments that either define you or break you. And for me, it was Alan Trammell. He walked right. I was sitting.
Classy guy.
The greatest guy in the world. I'm sitting in a locker. I'm going, oh my gosh, what do I do? Look at it. I'm sitting here. And he came up to me and he shook my hand. He says, and he had no clue I knew everything about him. And he came up and says, I'm Alan Trammell. Anything I can do for you, let me know. It's a pleasure to have you in our organization. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then there's Jack Morris, and he was grumpy and he would, and then there's Kirk Gibson, who I followed at Michigan State. And so here I have all these different type of players that I'm watching them do life. And Alan Trammell I call paid it forward. He allowed me to understand what a true big leaguer was.
86 it begins. You're in single A. 87, you get traded from your, in essence, hometown, beloved team, and they trade. How'd you find out you got traded?
I'm in Glens Falls, New York, having the worst season you can have. I'm 5-11, and not the start to a career I thought was going to be what I had envisioned, playing in my home ballpark with all my family. I had put a lot of pressure on myself to make it for everybody else. So at this point, I'm like, this is unbelievable, right? But then you realize, I just want my parents and friends to be able to see me play in the big leagues. So I'm struggling, and we're struggling as a team. So I get these notes in the dugout. Somebody just comes in and gives me 2 notes. Call my dad and call Detroit front office. So I'm like, I think there's something wrong. And I got to call my dad immediately. So I go into the clubhouse and I call my dad. And he didn't beat around the bush. He just said, you just been traded to the Atlanta Braves. I said, not funny, what's up? He said, no, I just heard it on the news. You've been traded to the Atlanta Braves. I said,
because
Dad.
a local news station had called him back home and said, what do you think of your son being traded?
Right, and I said, Dad, I'm serious. I'll fly home and kick your butt right now. This is not funny. I'm struggling. He goes, no. And then I realized that other note. I said, Dad, I'm gonna have to call you back. And I called and they let me know I'd been traded. I was numb for I was numb as the manager was numb and the teammates that I had, had were numb. They couldn't believe it. Because technically I was their number 2 prospect, for whatever that means. And I'd been traded to the worst baseball team in America.
Let's talk about what your goals are now as you go into this Atlanta organization. Everything's new. What are you setting out for yourself?
So I have to redefine who I am as far as get my confidence back. Because in Detroit, it just wasn't working, right? It was 5-11. And so I get from AAA, which I got beat up, which I knew I probably should have, wasn't ready, to going to Instructional League. And that's where I met all their prospects. And I met Leo Mazzoni and all the coaches. And I got to Atlanta. Leo Mazzoni said, kid, let me see you throw a natural pitch, just as natural as you can be. And I threw it. And he goes, that's perfect. And I went, what? Like, seriously.
Instead of everything else you were trying to do.
He just said, be athletic. I went back to an athletic delivery. He goes, now all we're going to do is upgrade your pitches. And it was like the weight had gotten lifted off me to all this mechanical stuff that was stuck in my head. And I could just realize my original goal back in Lansing, Michigan, throwing against a brick wall. I want to make it to the big leagues.
Now, this is all in a very small window.
Yeah.
And now you're in the Atlanta Braves organization, and you eventually make it to the big leagues. And I say eventually, like the next season.
Yeah.
And Leo Mazzoni's redefined you as a pitcher, and you make your major league debut at Shea Stadium against a really good Mets team. Shea Stadium is packed to the brim.
That game was unreal. I mean, I won my first game. I gave up a run in the first inning, and that was it. And won my first game on a team that was not very good, and I was numb.
So, all right. So we're talking about 1988.
Yep.
If you're of a certain age, you think of the Atlanta Braves, and you think of John Smoltz with the Atlanta Braves in that era, and you think win, 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 win. But these are last-place clubs that you're a part of. I mean, that organization was flatlining.
We lost over 100 games my first 3 years, and we were in last-place team, and it was a laughing. I mean, I literally, getting acquainted with the Atlanta area, I remember going in my 3rd year to a comedy club in Atlanta. 90% of the jokes were about our team, me. And I remember at the time people I'm with, they're on the floor laughing. I'm going, that's us. What are you doing?
It's not that funny.
It's not that funny. And I remember just this whole mindset of going home, being negative, and just this negative mindset, which is not me. It's not my dad. It's not our household. And boy, it turned.
So in 1990, Bobby Cox takes over. He was the general manager.
He traded for me.
He did the deal to get you into the Atlanta organization. He had been the manager before, went up to the front office. Now the team's been so bad for so long, he says, I'm going to go down and manage.
Yeah,
that changed everything.
It really did. Bobby had managed over in Toronto, been super successful, took our club, built our club with farm system prospects, traded for me. And now it's kind of, I want to say a little bit of a last hurrah, but it was like, all right, if you're going to make this work. And wow, did my career, I mean, this is the guy that I would do anything for. It's the reason I stayed 21 years. It's the reason I turned down more money. He believed in me. Obviously, there's a little built-in pressure of trading for me. But without him, my career would never have gotten to the point where it did.
So in 1991, this perennial last-place club with a really good nucleus kicks it into gear. You've got Bobby Cox at the helm of the ship, and you guys get into the NLCS.
Right.
So here's your opportunity in the postseason for the first time.
Yeah, I felt like, we added veterans like Terry Pendleton from the Cardinals, Sid Bream, Rafael Belliard. They gave us the insight and the ability. But we were on this second half quest that nobody paid attention to our run.
So you get the opportunity to make a Game 7 start in the 91 NLCS.
Yes.
How do you prepare? How do you mentally prepare for a Game 7?
So just real quick, I'm a guy that if I got a no-hitter going, you can talk to me. I'm a guy that doesn't get nervous. I love the moment. It's bigger the better. I can sleep, take a nap the day I'm pitching. I don't pitch the game in my mind. I don't think about it. I go to bed and I wake up when I want to, and it's usually around 11 or 12 o'clock. Now, I get out of the hotel and get in a cab, which is about a 5-minute cab ride to Three Rivers.
Yeah, you're in Pittsburgh. It's right across the river.
So my public relations director and his assistant come with me, and they're in the back seats. And I get in the cab, and this is a die-hard Pirates cabbie. Just die-hard. He's so fired up. He has no clue who I am in the front seat. So he's fired up, and he's like, where are you guys from? And our PR guy goes through, we're from Atlanta. He goes, oh, what a great run. What a great run. It's over today, though. It's over. Man, you guys came from nowhere, but that Smoltz guy's got no chance tonight. Bell's gonna beat him, I'm in the front seat. I don't say a word. I pay him, I give him a great tip, and pitch the game.
And let's see what happened.
Strike 3 to Jay Bell. And a strikeout for Smoltz, and he is rapidly becoming a big story in this playoff. 0-2 to the batter. And to the first baseman under. And that's it for Atlanta. They won last night. They won this evening. And John Smoltz has pitched Atlanta into the World Series.
Man. I mean, there are Game 7s, and then there's, a last place club the previous year, and you're pitching Game 7 in 91. You go 9 innings, and you're the guy on the mound when the game ends.
That doesn't get old. Although my kids wake up every morning to it, they think that's no.
You're right, yeah. that every morning, Dad.
That to me was what Lansing, Michigan was all about. That's what I did. That's how I pitched against the wall. I tell people all the time, I won every one of those games but one, just to keep it real, like throw in a loss so people don't think you're somebody crazy.
Well, it gets better. It gets better because if you're constantly going to your mind back in Lansing, Michigan and throwing against the wall, part of that time of your life was this adoration of the Detroit Tigers, which had a pitcher on the Detroit Tigers by the name of
Jack Morris.
Jack Morris. You go to the World Series in 1991 against the Minnesota Twins, and you face 2 times.
Yeah, Jack Morris. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, our age difference is pretty significant, where I grew up watching him, idolizing him, and then he gets traded over to the Minnesota Twins, and now I'm going to pitch against him. So
in the World Series, and we can fast forward to Game 7 of the World Series. I mean, those are gems for any sports fan, and you're pitching against your boyhood idol.
Yeah, so I pitched Game 7 and the pennant, so I'm got to wait to pitch Game 3 and Game 4, and then evidently I would pitch Game 7, come to find out. But it didn't start out great, because I get to Minnesota, we're all excited. We used to have this tradition where we'd go out to dinner, Olson's, the Liebrandts, and myself. I got food poisoning. And so my moment of getting introduced and being on the field, I never went to the field the first 2 games. I was so sick in the hotel. And I was obviously lost weight, and I was miserable watching the game from afar. And so I started out that World Series in a rough way, where my first game was in Atlanta, in which we won in extra innings, and now I get to pitch this Game 7. Once I got in the game, I was in such a zone. I don't hear, the noise becomes a dull roar, because if it's a dull roar, you're doing your part. If it's a fanatic loud noise, you're in trouble, because that means things are happening. It's 0-0 in the 8th inning.
And you get into a jam.
Yeah.
Runner going. Base hit. First and third, one out. And who's up? Puckett.
You've already stated your love for Bobby Cox, and
Yeah.
it's genuine, and I know it's so true, and I know that love went both ways. There was an honesty. There has to be an honesty between a manager and a pitcher, especially a starter, to be able to tell the manager, I got this,
Right.
or he sees something in your eye that he doesn't like.
And
so before we do it, let's watch what happens.
John Smoltz was terrific tonight, but is knocked out here in the 8th inning in favor of Mike Stanton. First and third, one out, no score. Scoreless game. 10-inning victory.
So, I know you well enough to know that look on your face when Bobby Cox comes out there in the 8th inning is, are you kidding me?
And the problem was I couldn't do anything about it. He made the change so quick. You know, he came out and
Before he crossed the line.
Yeah, and I was assessing a situation in my mind. I was like, I've owned Puckett during the game. I can't believe what is he doing? It was, you know, the way the year went, and your tank's empty, and both sides. It's just incredible, and I just felt like, oh, I was so close to accomplishing that dream. I'm going to win the Game 7 of the World Series. It's going to be 1-0. And there's nothing you could do but hand him the ball, and you know you gave everything you had. So that shot at the end, most of the players left. I wanted to take that part in. I wanted to see what that was like, the euphoric feeling that the Minnesota Twins had, because I knew some point we would experience that.
That's 91, 92. You get back to the World Series, and you're taking on a really good Toronto club, and you come up short again.
Yeah, I mean, these are scenarios after a laughing stock of an organization. All of a sudden, we've come back-to-back years really close. We proved to everybody this is not a fluke. Like, we're going to be pretty good for a while.
But I sense that you're particularly tired of hearing from people, maybe even already, great regular season team, can't get it done in October.
Yeah, because it was so close, we're still on the cusp of that being really the headlines. Because, you know, I've never understood in sports why the Buffalo Bills were considered not champions, even though they didn't win. Like, no one's ever gone to 4 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, they're considered failures.
Yeah, they're considered failures, and that's where we were starting to get into that category, because we didn't win in 92, we didn't win in 93.
And by the way, 93, you had Greg Maddux, who, you know, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Greg Maddux was this unbelievable pitcher in Wrigley Field with the Cubs, and I mean, just a wizard on the mound, and then he comes to you guys. So what you have in your rotation are 3 first-ballot Hall of Famers in yourself, Tom Glavine, and Greg Maddux.
Yeah, when we added him, it was like, oh, man, here we go. You know, this is going to take us to the next level. 93 hurt bad when we lost to the Phillies. We were a so much better team. And it's now you start entering that point where, like, how long can we keep our team together? And, you know, 94 was a little bit of an interruption there with the strike. But then here comes the ultimate pressure in 95.
Yeah, no, so there's no postseason in 94. 1991 started a stretch where you won 14 consecutive division titles.
Right.
Which is unheard of, especially in baseball in the division era. I think the Yankees are next at 8.
It's not far-fetched to say we should have won 4 or 5 of them, and yet we didn't. And it was starting to eat at us. And for a pitching staff that stayed together and we pitched extremely well in all of those, pretty much all of those series, we just kept coming up short. And we vowed every year that we'd make the necessary adjustments physically to do that.
So you come back in 95, and I'm interested to know where you are as a group. You know, you're thinking that this has got to happen.
Yeah, 95, pretty much still the same team. I forget who we might have added, but the young players are starting to come. I just remember Maddux being unbelievably filthy good that year. And now we take on the greatest offensive team, I think, in World Series, maybe history, the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about Tomei, Vizquel, Manny Ramirez, Albert Bell. I mean, these are names.
Lofton, they were loaded. Baerga, they had Travis Fryman, I think, was It was
Think about
unbelievable.
that. I mean, that lineup, there wasn't an out in there.
Yeah.
You know, there's no give up in any spot in that lineup.
What's interesting about that is 95 was the worst World Series game I've ever pitched.
It's so ironic that all these years you're lights out and you're pitching shutouts and game sevens and all that. And of all the years and all these postseasons, 95 is the one postseason where you're okay.
It was really cold. I know my parents were second row to the top. It was freezing. And it was when I was starting to realize I had another problem besides my physical injuries. I couldn't feel the ball when it got cold. And I told Bobby after one inning, I said, Bobby, I can't throw a split. I can't throw a slider. I'm pitching with a cue ball. That's what it felt like. And I said, I lasted an inning and 2/3. And it was just no chance for success. The irony about that is I was in position to pitch another game 7. And I was so ready, despite the failed previous start. The chanting was starting to be, if we beat Glavine, we got Smoltz.
Looked like this.
Baerga is 0 for 3. Left center field. Grissom on the run. The team of the 90s has its world championship.
Nobody understands what this team has been through. I mean, the media attention, the media tortures, and everybody tried for so long to pry in, break up, and we came through, and now we can be considered one of the best teams. It's just not fair when you're in a World Series, you're either a choker or a champion. I don't understand that. So they can say all they want now about who's a postseason player and who isn't. We got a World Championship under our belt.
So there it is. It happened.
It did.
How'd that feel?
This won't surprise you. I mean, it felt great, but this won't surprise you what I did after we won it. Maddox and I went bowling like the next day.
What?
We weren't even thinking. We didn't even think what chaos we had created at the bowling alley. And for the record, he did not put his fingers in the holes and bowled a 275.
Greg Maddox bowled a 275 without putting his fingers in.
I was trying to figure out if that was legit or not, if it was against the rules, and I guess there's no rules saying you have to put your fingers in there. But yeah, we went bowling. We were so.
What does that say about you?
I should have been Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber. I should have been. That's the way I am. I mean, we just the weight of that was so great to be taken off our backs, and. It was almost like, what do we do now?
1996 was an unbelievable year for the Atlanta Braves, but for you, it was hands down, and this is hands down with a lot of options, but your best year, your Cy Young Award.
Yeah, first time I'd felt healthy in a while where the offseason wasn't spent rehabbing, right? So I walked in, I'm not an arrogant, cocky guy, but I have an inner confidence that is pretty high. And I walked into spring training. Maddox was coming off, I think, his 4th straight Cy Young. And I walked into spring training, kind of half joking to the coaches first day. I said, Maddox had its run, it's my turn. And I just felt really good about that year heading in because I was healthy. There was nothing I had to worry about in the offseason. That pressure-packed year was so fulfilled by, I felt, physically at times better than anybody else on the field, and I've never felt that. I always felt like I had to work that much harder than the next guy. I had to give more. That physical dominance felt so good that it carried itself throughout the year.
This team that's loaded, this Atlanta Braves team, you guys go to the Bronx and win the first 2 games on the road and go home to Fulton County up 2-0.
We dominated. We were down 3-1 to the Cardinals. Ran 3 straight wins to get to the Yankees. Beat the Yankees, I think, 24-2 or 24-1 in those 2 games.
And let's see what happened.
Again, the 2-2 to Leyritz. In the air to left field. Back at the track at the wall. We are tied. 6-6 here in the 8th. Another chance to the left side. Hayes waits. The Yankees are champions of baseball.
I tell everyone, I would trade that Cy Young in a heartbeat.
24 wins.
Trade it in a heartbeat to win that second world championship in a row, which we should have. But that series, to this day, is still a gut punch that I don't think any of us ever get over. And that changed the way the Atlanta Braves were going to be viewed. We then made trades. It spun the Yankees into 4 out of 5. That would have been us. That would have been 4 out of 5, no doubt.
But in 2000, you're 34, and now you've got to go through Tommy John, which is going to cost you a year.
Yeah.
Are you thinking this is
done.
it?
I retired. So I had the surgery, and I know, he's never confessed this to me, but I was done. Somebody had Tommy John call me. And I remember picking up the phone, and he called me. He says, John, this is Tommy John. I'm like, really? He says, don't do it. Keep in there. And he explained don't quit. He said, he told me his whole process. He said, when I was 34 is when it happened to me. And I pitched 11 more years, whatever he pitched. Tommy John said, I pitched, and it was all new. He says, they're getting better at it. Stick with it. And it really was a huge part of a turn to say, I will stick with it. I will go one more. And I rehabbed like crazy. And the rest is history. I would not have had 7 more years of pitching had it not been for determining to keep going.
We have this quote on the wall. It says, I'm not afraid to fail. That seems to speak to it, you know, right. That you're inventing on the mound just to try to get outs.
Really, the model of failure for me is it's a motivator to be great. If you allow those moments in your life not to define you, you will not stay comfortable. You will create movement. Movement, to me, tension creates movement. Movement towards something or movement away from something. And I always wanted to move toward it. As uncomfortable as I would get, it would allow me to expand my horizon of becoming even better. And you know, honestly, that Tommy John surgery created a whole new opportunity for me that I never thought.
Which comes after you come back in 01 as the starter. It locks up on you again. You have tendonitis, and at the end of the year, they say, well, why don't we go to the bullpen? Or you say, why don't we go to the bullpen and try it? You know, this basically Hall of Fame starter, big game starter, becomes the closer.
I knew my elbow was starting to not be what it was supposed to be. Each start got worse and worse. And I could see the trainers like it was yesterday. I ripped the jersey off my back. The buttons went everywhere. And I threw it in the trash. Another emotional moment, said, I quit. I can't take the pain. The pain had been going way too long, and it just caught up to me. And they said, John, you know, they knew how to handle me at that point.
Right.
They said, we're going to go back.
John's doing it again.
Yeah. We're going to go back to Birmingham. We're going to get it looked at. Dr. Andrews said, it's just tendonitis. Ride it out. You'll be fine. And I'm like, yeah, right, I'll be fine. I mean, I'm on the last year of my contract. How fine am I going to be? And literally, Bobby was like, I'll wait. No problem. I said, Bobby, we don't have that time. I am going to the minors to learn how to pitch out of the pen. And he goes, I don't think it's good. I said, I'm doing it. I said, that's the only way I can help you at the end of the season. 2 months off as a starter, you cannot get ready to do what I wanted to do. He didn't know what to expect, nor did anybody else. And he put me in an insignificant game in the 9th inning. It was like, I don't even know, 8-run lead. The place went crazy. I come out of the pen, and I think I strike out the side, and I think I'm throwing like 98, and everybody goes, wow. So I start moving up the ladder. I start pitching the 6th inning, 7th, 8th, and eventually the last month I become the closer. I take over for Steve Carsey. And what became a novel idea ended up defining me, because that offseason, that's all they wanted to talk about negotiation-wise, is me as the closer.
You're without a deal. The Yankees make you an offer.
Yes.
9/11 had just happened.
Yes.
And you're weighing a lot of money from the Yankees to be with New York, which requires a huge life change, or go back to Atlanta as the closer, which is a complete reinvention of your career.
Yeah, it's not my personality. It's not what I want to do.
So you leave more money on the table. You come back to the Braves.
It was the most unbelievable learn on the job, and talk about embracing failure, talk about it's not what I want to do. I was living the life as a starter. 4 days in between, I could go up to the clubhouse and eat whatever I want and come right back to the dugout and chill and hang and have no stress. And then all of a sudden, I'm now in the bullpen away from my buddies who are going to do their thing, and I'm going to have to learn my thing. So what I did, the way it works.
And you're going to, by the way, as a small thing, save their games.
Correct. So Bobby knew my personality. That's what made our relationship so great. I said, Bobby, I've got to change the whole bullpen down there. There's no way I can survive in a little room in 100-degree temperature and sit down there and act like I'm fired up to wait to pitch the 9th inning. So I built the Taj Mahal that basically was a room that we expanded, got air conditioning, 6 recliners, 3 TVs, 2 refrigerators, and everything you could possibly need. And what do you think management felt? They were like, oh my gosh, this is gonna fail. I said, no, we're gonna be relaxed. This is gonna be awesome. Like, I'm gonna go down there and chill in my favorite recliner for 3 or 4 innings, take a nap, and when the phone rings, I'm gonna be ready, and I'm gonna go get 3 outs.
And that first year in 2002, you set the National League record with 55 saves.
And that's what happened.
So for 3 years, he closes, and you end up over that 3-year stretch with 144 saves. And you become this dominant closer. And I want to say this about you on camera in front of people. In the history of baseball, there is a short list of pitchers that you would say, Game 7, I want that guy to start it. You're on that list. And there's also a short list of guys where you would say, Game 7, I want that guy coming out of the bullpen to save the game and win the World Series. And you're on that list. You're the only guy on both those lists.
Yeah.
That is what defines you as a professional athlete. And knowing you the way I know you, I'm fascinated by this guy who's mild-mannered, jokey, fun, sweet, and then when you get on the mound, you're an assassin.
Yeah. It's like driving a car as a starter and taking the same path and driving the speed limit, and everything's comfortable. Your surroundings, everything you know. And then being a closer is like getting in a race car and going by the seat of your pants and breaking every speed record, and the adrenaline's off the charts. There's nothing close to the same. So I had to learn how to deal with that in my own way.
And then you come back as a 38-year-old, and you are a starter again after that 3-year run. And though I'm sure you had doubts, they had doubts. You end up another 200-plus inning guy. I mean, it's like you never left.
It's funny because management had all kinds of doubts. And no one in the history of the game had ever done this. But it was who I am. That still was my identity. I had 14 years of basically being a starter before I get thrust into a closing role. And I was so adamant that I could do it to our general manager, I could understand his reservations.
Struck him out. There it is. Career strikeout number 3,000 for John Smoltz. History in Atlanta. And the congratulations from Brian McCann. That ball ticketed for Cooperstown. And someday so's that man. John Smoltz, 3,000 strikeouts, acknowledging the crowd.
Well, there it is. I mean, we're winding down. You're the first to do it as a Brave, which is saying something in the history of the organization. But you know, you try it again the next year with Boston. It doesn't work there.
Yeah.
And you get released midway through the year. You go to St. Louis, and you're good again.
Yeah.
I mean, you finished strong, and I feel like you finished on your own terms.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You know, it's like, you know, the good book says, finish that good fight. You know, fight the good fight. Finish strong. Finish in a way where I really. God gave me an ability to do something that I never thought I would do for as long as I did. And with each door closing, another one opened. And of all things, I started broadcasting right after St. Louis.
So I want to ask you something, and maybe you're the best person that could sit in this chair and answer this. You go into the Hall of Fame, first ballot, no surprise, 200-plus wins, 150 saves plus. It's just incredible. You went through so many surgeries, had so much pain, and yet I believe you when you look me in the eye and you say, I never did performance-enhancing drugs?
Well, it's a great question, and I thank my parents for raising me right. I mean, my mom and dad did a great job.
It would have been so easy. It was all around you, if not with Atlanta. I'm not saying it, but all around the culture.
Yeah, they always preach honor God first. I mean, family, you know, God, family, school. I mean, sports was down the line. The one thing that I can say unequivocally, I mean, people used to ask me, what are you on? Why are you so happy? Why are you jumping around? Why are you shagging? I said, I love what I do. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't. And I've never taken a greenie. I've never drinking coffee. I've never put anything in my body that a doctor did not prescribe, right? And so the one thing that frustrates me about what you asked about what Reuters or anybody perception is, why have we gotten to a point where we water down truth and go, what's the difference? Because to a guy like me, that's gonna anger me. What I don't ever wanna hear is when somebody says, I took this because I owed it to the team to get back sooner. See, I don't wanna hear that, because I had to go through rehab and surgery too, and I had to do the long route. So those are the things that if there's one thing that bothers me, all the things in our sport does not take away from the athleticism and the greatness of a player doing it. But what it does do is give him an unfair advantage over the rest that did not have. It's not a level playing field. That's the one thing that I will always say. But I also say it doesn't make a person hit a ball, doesn't make them throw a baseball. It just gives them the opportunity to last longer and be better other than what their own natural ability could take them. So it's like golf. You know how much I love golf. And I always, for the longest time, want to just bring around these fake trophies and just say, hey, dude, if you got to cheat, here's the trophy, man. If you want it so bad, like that's the ultimate integrity game where nobody's looking, how do you perform? And if people want it bad enough, and the disappointment for me is that when you take the national survey of people, and the question is, would you cheat to win a gold medal? When that percentage is that high, that's disappointing. I want to beat you at your best so much that I'll help you and give you a tip just so I know I'm competing at your best.
It's great. Well, before I get to these, we always end this show with what's next. I feel like what's next for you are we talking about a golf career? I mean, I know you've played a lot with Tiger Woods. You've played a lot. I mean, you can run in those circles.
You know, I'm not, that thing's fading a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, physically some things are taking its toll, but I'm not giving up on it, okay?
I mean, you're going to turn 50.
I'm turn 50. I'm already going to sign up.
While.
Yeah, I'm going to sign up for the qualifier. And as I told you, since you've got the U.S. Senior Open, I'll wear a mic. I'm going to shock the world, and I'm going to let everybody know what it, you know.
Okay, good. Do it.
I'll wear a mic, but that's the way I think, and that's what keeps me going. I've learned in life, I have a reverse bucket list. The things I said I would never do, I'm already doing. So God has definitely taken me in some directions. I like to plan things, and I like to dream. And my dream has always been, just to set the record straight, it's not full-time, it's just a couple events playing in the senior tour, because I want to see what that is like for what I learned in my sport, to bring that to another sport that I love, that I've grown. I didn't play until I was 19 years old, self-taught, and that's what makes me tick.
All right, we end with fun questions. Would you rather sing like an opera star or cook like a gourmet chef?
Wow. I think my parents would be disappointed if I didn't said sing like an opera star.
With an accordion.
Yeah, with an accordion.
Would you rather live one life that lasts 1,000 years or 10 lives that last 100 years each?
Wow. One life that lives 1,000 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think you were going there. Would you rather wear a snowsuit in the desert or be naked in Antarctica?
I hate being cold.
Do you mind being naked?
I don't mind being naked, but I hate being cold. I'm taking a snowsuit.
And a simple question, and the last one I'm going to ask you. What makes a great pitcher?
What makes a great pitcher is having the confidence to be committed that whatever you're doing at the moment is right. So if it's picking a fastball and it gets hit out of the park, but you were committed, then it was the right pitch. But the same thing in life. If you're uncommitted and you just go, I'll try this, and you're half-hearted in it, you can make changes if you're committed and all in. And as a pitcher, you got to be mentally tougher than the guy that's at the plate, because it's the cat and mouse game that I miss. Like, I'm standing on the mound facing Albert Pujols, and he has no idea how scared I am of him. If he does, he's won. And hopefully he's doing the same thing. And so the battle that happens is, I believe I'm better than you. And whether it works that way or not, you've got to have that mindset.
Here's a man who grew up in Michigan. He went from the Accordion to the Tigers, to the Braves, to a starter, to a reliever, to a champion, to a Hall of Famer, and now a broadcaster, and a wonderful human being who did it the right way. Ladies and gentlemen, John Smoltz.